Hello, this is Spellbinder with this news article from a British writer who's, he's dogging our Constitution and saying how worthless and weak it is, and it didn't do any good, the experiment's over, and I guess we're all over and we should bow down and be just like the British are, under surveillance, groveling at the feet of their government, and I guess we should make Obama into a king or something, and Michelle a queen, and I don't know. That's about what it sounds like, with his dribble here. He's just dribbling on. But he sits there and he talks right off the get-go. He starts biting the hole in our butts over here in America. Says, wouldn't it be splendid if the solution to the American problems could be written down in a slim book no bigger than a passport that you could slip into your breast pocket? That's more or less is the big ideal of the Tea Party movement, the grassroots mutiny against our big government that has mounted an international or an internal takeover of the Republican Party and changed the face of American politics. Listen to Michelle Bachmann, a congresswoman from Minnesota, the Tea Party heroine, as she addresses the conservative value voters summoned in Washington, D.C. last week. And, and he goes on and he has her little speech in here about the Tea Party and everything, about the revolution and how we're moving up with the Tea Party and everything. Only thing I want to say about the Tea Party is I'm upset with the Tea Party because the GOP took it over for their own advantage and took it away from the Libertarian Party. It was the Libertarians' party platform was the Tea Party. And then next thing you know is Palin and Glenn Beck and company come in there and take it over. And now all it is now is a platform for the Republicans. It's no longer a platform for the people. It's a Republican platform. And, it's just like the Democrats now. They're getting ready to turn around and start doing things right so they can get voted back in. Well, I'm sorry to tell the Democrats this, but it's too late to turn tail now. That's like called backstepping, and you're not going to be able to backstep on this one. You've already failed. So, you're going to be out of office. Hopefully we can get 99% of them out of there that voted. And like I said, check the voting records on both parties and see who voted for what that we didn't want. And those are the ones that are enemy of the state, or at least of the people. When we say this, the state, because that's apparently what we are. We're enemies of the state, the American people. Since 9/11, 290 million plus people became terrorists after the Patriot Act 1 and 2 was passed. Anyways, this guy goes on here and he gives the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution have been venerated for 2 centuries. But thanks to the Tea Party movement, they are enjoying a dramatic revival. The day after the September Constitution Day anniversary, people all over the country congratulate to read every word aloud in profoundly moving exercise that will take less than 1 hour, according to the gathering organizers. At almost any Tea Party meeting, you can expect to see some patriot brandishing a copy of the hallowed text and calling with trembling voice for a prodigal America to redeem itself by returning to its founding principles. The Washington Post reports that Colonel Williamsburg has been crowned with Tea Partiers, asking the actors who played George Washington and his fellow founders for advice on how to cast off tyrannical government. See, he's already making fun of it. Constitution, the most perfect experiment that's not even an experiment. It's not an experiment. It worked. It's just that we allowed the government to get too big. And he mentions that in here. He mentions Lyndon Johnson, Franklin Roosevelt, and everyone else in the, especially Barack Obama took the Constitution totally out of the picture. Well, he says, conservative think tanks have the same dream of return to the pre-lapsarian innocence. The Heritage Foundation is running a first principle project to save America by reclaiming its truths and its premises and conserving its liberating principles for ourselves and our prosperity. A heritage book and video, We Shall Hold These Truths, promotes the old verities of Pacincia. For present eras, America, such conservatives say, took a wrong turn when Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt fell under the spell of progressive ideas and expanded the scope of government beyond both the founders' imaging and the competence of any state. Under the cover of war and recession, never let a crisis go to waste, said Barack Obama's chief of staff, Raleigh M. Franklin Roosevelt, Lyndon Johnson, and now Obama continue the bad work. Thus has mankind's greatest experiment in self-government been crushed by monstrous Leviathan. Yes, the Leviathan has taken over. Except for argument's sake that those who argue this way have identified the right problem, the Constitution on its own does not provide the solution. Oh, really? It doesn't provide the solution? Indeed, there is something infantile in the belief of the Constitution worshippers that the complex political arguments of today can be settled by simple fidelity to a document written in the 18th century. Michael Carmen of the Harvard Law School has a label for this urge to seek revealed truth in sacred texts. He calls it constitutional ideology or idolatry. The Constitution is a thing of wonder, all the more miraculous for having been written when the rest of the world's people were still under the boot of kings and emperors. And England's not under a queen still, and under a socialist government. That puts cameras on every corner and spies in your garbage and puts tax on everything so you can't get ahead because you're too busy getting behind. I mean, these people these grovelers. This guy here doesn't realize this country people grovel at their government because they've limp-wristed themselves. Man, we stand up and have protests and stuff. What do? They grovel. Anyway, the Tea Partiers have invited a strangely hysterical version of it. For example, they say that the framers aim to check the central government and protect the rights of states. In fact, the Constitution in 1787 set out to do the opposite, to bolster the central, weaken the power the states had briefly enjoyed under the new Republic Articles of Confederation, 1777. The words of men, not of gods. It says, when history is turned into scripture and men into deities, truth is the victim. The framers were giants, visionaries, and polymaths, but they were also aristocrats, creatures of their time, fearful of what they considered the excessive democracy taking hold in the states in the 1780s. They did not believe that poor men or any women, let alone slaves, should have the vote. Many of their decisions, such as giving every state 2 senators, regardless of population, were the product not of Olympian sagacity, but of grubby power struggles and compromises, exactly the sort of backroom deal-making, in fact, that which today's Congress excels, and which is now so much out of favor with the Tea Partiers. See, now he's just sitting there and just making it just wrong, and Reality Check report will tell you this in a moment. Says, more to the point is the Constitution provides few answers to the hard questions thrown up by modern politics. Should gays marry? No. Their answer is no there. And why? Because it has nothing. The government should have no say in what is what. It goes to the churches. I'm sorry. That's who makes those decisions on morals, not the government. The churches do. Those institutions make the choice on gay marriage and all the rest of the stuff that these liberals just munch down on. Mr. Carmen argues the administrative branch and imperial executives as to what they would have made of the modern welfare state. Who can tell? To ask the question after the passage of 2 centuries says, I think Jefferson said something about we shouldn't have welfares at all. If people can't make it, that's their problem for being lazy. pose an impossible thought experiment. See, it's a thought experiment now. None of this is to say that the bottom state is not to bloat it over the mighty. There certainly is a case to be made of reducing the size of ambitions, giving greater responsibilities to the individuals. But this is a case that needs to be made and remade from the principles of a republican generation, not just the consulting the text and put on paper in bygone age. Pays Miss Backman. The Constitution is for all Americans and does not belong to her party alone, nor does Jefferson write a mission statement for the Tea Parties. They are going to have to write one for themselves. I'm afraid to differ, and this is what the differ is. This is Reality Report number 63, Constitutionalists Under Siege. This is what you're wrong, Mr. Lexington. Very wrong. Go back home to Britain.
Last week, The Economist printed an article slamming the U.S. Constitution. The article, titled "The Perils of Constitution Worship," opens up with, "Wouldn't it be splendid if the solutions to America's problems could be written down in a slim book no bigger than a passport that you could slip into your breast pocket?" This statement sets the tone for the remaining dribble from a Brit whose paycheck is signed by one of the leading globalist families, the Rothschild banking family. The article continues, "The Constitution on its own does not provide the solution. Indeed, there is something infantile in the belief of the Constitution worshippers that the complex political arguments of today can be settled by simple fidelity to a document written in the 18th century. Actually, many problems would be solved if we just followed the simple outline. For instance, if we had a militia state, as the founders intended us to have, one similar to the Swiss model, there would be no need for a bloated and increasingly threatening Department of Homeland Security. The problems we face with a fiat currency printed by a banking cartel known as the Federal Reserve would be solved if Congress never relinquished their constitutional authority to coin money and regulate its value. Staying on a gold and silver standard would rein in the out-of-control spending, endless wars, and bailouts of Wall Street banks that should be bankrupt for their bad decisions." This limey crown polisher continues to say that the framers' aim was to check the central government and protect the rights of the state. It was. Read the 10th Amendment. It states, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." He even demands that the Constitution address the gay marriage issue. Actually, the reason there is no mention in the Constitution about if gays should marry is because the federal government has no business in such a matter that belongs to the institutions that administer marriage. Another issue solved by the 10th Amendment. In the article, he states that Michael Claremon, who teaches constitutional history at the Harvard Law School, believes the founders had no opinion of the welfare state. Perhaps he missed this quote from Thomas Jefferson, who said this about welfare: "To take from one because it is thought his own industry and that of his fathers has acquired too much in order to spare others who or whose fathers who have not exercised equal industry and skill is to violate arbitrarily the first principle of association, the guarantee to everyone the free exercise of his industry and the fruits acquired by it." Lexington closes his article stating that the case for reducing government and giving individuals greater freedom should be decided every political generation, not just by consulting a text put on paper in a bygone age. Let me make a few things clear. The Constitution is not a perfect document, as we can see by today's government, who has found countless legal loopholes to abuse power and erode freedom. But the guiding principles are what have made this nation prosperous and great. The freedoms enshrined on that parchment have served this nation and have bound our government by rules. To have that up for grabs every generation would be suicide and only drive this nation faster down the path guided by the globalists who printed this article and now enjoy blanketed surveillance and unarmed populace. Take your rag back to London. We fought a war to kick you guys out. It's time for the Reality Report.
There you have it. Well, there it is. We kicked them out before that. I can't believe he sat there and just ragged on our Constitution like that. I'm telling you, it's not an imperfect paper. We just need to reset the game according to the Constitution and start over again when it gets this bad. Well, until next time, Spellbinder, be good at it, and good day.